The horizon burned beneath twin suns, painting Dantooine's rolling plains in weary gold and bruised crimson. Smoke curled from distant battlefields, where Republic infantry held fast against Mandalorian lances. In Coruscant's Jedi council chamber, elders murmured of non-intervention. Scarred by past Sith wars, they deemed this a political clash, not their concern. Yet beyond marble pillars and holoreports, one knight watched with a clenched jaw and storm-lit eyes. Revan, cloaked in blue-grey robes, felt justice twist in his chest. Each flash of Beskar-tipped spear, each muffled cry, spoke of innocence crushed beneath Crusader zeal. The Council's mandate, "No Jedi blood beyond our walls," rang hollow. He rose from the bench of acolytes, footsteps silent on polished stone, and slipped away without farewell. In that departure lay a promise. Some truths demanded action, not debate. On Dantooine, jungle shadows swallowed man and beast alike beneath verdant canopies. Republic transports disgorged legions of troopers, their armor dented by blaster fire and strain. Revan arrived quietly, escorted by Malachor, his stern comrade, and General Krell, whose uniform bore fresh stains of trench mud. Revan's gaze traced the glowing holomap, red zones marking Mandalorian encampments like constellations of defiance. "They fortify every ridge," Krell reported, voice low. "Our supply lines will collapse if we sit idle." Revan's nod was brief. "Then we shatter their siege." His words wove hope through weary ranks like living flame. Before dawn, Revan strode into the field beside Cassius Fett, Mandalore's strategist turned reluctant prisoner. Fett's Beskar armor was scarred yet unbowed. At Revan's gesture, he fell into step. "Guide us through their codes," Revan said. Fett's lens glinted. "And I will guide you to their weaknesses." Under fading starlight, Republic brigades formed wedge and crescent, advancing on Beskar-reinforced walls. The first clash thundered. Blaster bolts lanced through shield bubbles. Lightsabers erupted in keening arcs, and dust rose like specters on the wind. Revan's saber hummed a low lament as he deflected volleys, each parry a vow to the fallen. "You will not be forgotten." Around him, Jedi and trooper found courage in his calm presence, pressing forward where fear once held them. In the maelstrom, Revan glimpsed Malachor at his flank, blades crossing in a shower of sparks against charging warlords. The Force surged through Revan, an electric current of resolve, fracturing his soul along a new fault line. Between the Jedi Code's strictures and the imperative to save lives by any means necessary. By noon, Mandalorian lines buckled beneath Revan's tactics, his insight into their rituals and rhythms exposing gaps in their defenses. Yet victory's aftertaste was bitter. Smoldering bunkers, wounded survivors, and freed hostages bore witness to the cost. Fields lay scarred with craters and fallen shields. The Republic's triumph tasted of ash. As twin suns reached their zenith, Revan knelt beside a fallen Mandalorian warrior whose crimson crest was chipped. With tenderness unusual in war, he closed the man's visor and pressed a hand to cold Beskar sigils. A silent prayer rose, for peace, even for those who fought him mere hours before. The Council's edict still loomed overhead, but here, far from the temple, Revan had already chosen another path. Night fell with uneasy peace. Within a canvas-walled command tent, lanterns flickered over maps and comlinks. Revan removed his boots, tracing the day's losses. Malachor stood nearby, map scrolls unrolled before him. "You see what the code cannot," Malak said, voice hushed. "They'd rather watch worlds burn than risk a Jedi life." Revan stared at the dim holocron glow. "Then the code must bend. It must serve life, not bind it." Malak's gaze hardened. "And what of teachings forbidding bloodshed beyond our sanctuaries?" Revan closed his eyes. "Teachings written for peace, yet peace without justice is silence before another war." He rose, cloak swirling. "Tomorrow, we break Mandalore's siege at its heart. I will lead this strike myself." Malak placed a firm hand on Revan's shoulder. "Then we walk this path together." Before dawn's first light, Revan donned Jedi robes over battle-worn tunic and armor, securing saber and comlink at his belt. Outside, the Republic banner fluttered against bruised sky. Soon he would stand at Mandalore's gates, not as bystander, but avenging blade. When he emerged into the chill pre-dawn air, twin suns rose like blazing sentinels above the smoky camp. Their light cast long, jagged shadows, shadows of war and of choices yet to come. The Mandalorian wars bore the hidden hand of Sith manipulation, a truth destined to surface at Malachor 5. But that journey lay ahead, veiled in deeper darkness. For now, Revan stepped forward into a dawn of his own forging, each footfall echoing with the weight of hope and the promise of reckoning. Dawn broke over Dikshun's poisoned jungles, revealing ancient stone battlements, half swallowed by vines. Revan stood before a ragtag council of Republic generals and Jedi, his robes stirred by the humid air. The Jedi Council's edict still weighed upon him, a mandate of non-intervention. But Revan had already chosen a different path. He drew his lightsaber, its blade dormant, and laid it upon the moss-crusted altar of a forgotten temple. In that gesture, he renounced not just his rank, but the very doctrine that bound him. Beside him, Malak watched in silent solidarity. Once fellow Acolyte, now confidant, he had witnessed Revan's resolve crystallize when he saw children huddled in the wreckage of a downed shuttle, their cries echoing beneath alien canopies. Together, they had acquired Casus Fett, once Mandalore the Ultimate's strategist, cast aside by his own people in defeat. For Casus, the promise of justice, whether clad in Beskar or blossom-white robes, proved more magnetic than tribal legend. He knelt and pressed his armored hand to Revan's shoulder, pledging loyalty to a new cause. By midday, under skies crackling with distant ion storms, Revan led a small legion of Jedi, Republic troopers, and Mandalorian survivors to the ruins of an ancient city. Beskar warriors marched beside armored clones, their helmets bearing scorch marks from past skirmishes. Revan moved among them, his cloak swirling like midnight mist, his calm presence a rallying point for soldiers and Jedi alike. His words, unsanctioned yet undeniable, echoed across shattered columns. The Jedi would no longer stand idle while worlds burned. Murmurs of assent rose like a tide. The first skirmish proved the necessity of his choice. A Mandalorian warband had taken shelter in a collapsed cathedral, its stained glass shattered into sharp prisms. Revan and Malak guided artillery strikes, but Revan stopped the bombardment. Slipping through rubble, he confronted the survivors with blade unlit, offering them a choice: disarm and live, or fight and die. One by one, they surrendered, bitterness yielding to relief as Beskar hilts clattered to the stone. As dusk deepened, Revan stood alone amidst the wreckage, hands clasped behind his back. The sky was a bruised tapestry of violet and ash, pierced by the first stars. He gazed upon the fallen, Republic and Mandalorian, each life lost weighing on him more heavily than any victory. He whispered vows to the Force, not as a servant of the Jedi Order, but as its living conscience, asking forgiveness for lives extinguished and strength for the burdens to come. Tomorrow, he would carry these echoes to Mandalore's throne. That night, beside a dying fire, Revan convened his inner circle. Malak unfurled a holomap showing Mandalorian strongholds, with Concordia marked as their target. Cassius traced a route directly to the capital, where the exiled ruler had retreated. The plan was audacious, not to conquer, but to compel surrender through mercy. REVAN'S spoke of compassion as strategy, of mercy as a weapon. His voice was hushed, yet it carried the weight of inevitability. In each listener's eyes burned a spark of resolve kindled by his conviction. Across the camp, rumors swirled. Some spoke in awe of the Jedi who had forsaken his order to save lives. Others whispered of heresy and the danger of a night unbound. But Revan's influence spread faster than any rumor. Troopers polished their armor with renewed purpose. Mandalorian survivors repaired their Beskar plates in silent homage. Even the jungle seemed to lean closer, vines creaking as if straining to hear his next command. Before dawn's return, Revan knelt at the camp's edge, raising his hands to the sky. Through tangled vines, the first stars gleamed like distant beacons. He felt the cold bite of destiny brush his skin, knowing that by renouncing his title and embracing war, he had stepped beyond the Jedi Council's reach. His breath steady, each exhale a silent promise. The Mandalorian wars would bend to his will, or break him utterly. When the twin moons set and the morning sun crowned the horizon, a procession formed behind Revan. Jedi masters who once counseled caution now strode beside veteran troopers and reformed Mandalorians, united under one banner: mercy, conviction, and justice. As they marched toward Mandalore's gates, the heartbeat of the galaxy seemed to accelerate, every footfall echoing across worlds. The path ahead was fraught with peril and sacrifice, yet Revan's resolve shone as a beacon through the encroaching darkness. A new legend was being forged, one that would shape the fate of empires for centuries to come. Dusk settled over the Republic's edge worlds, draping shattered battlements and smoking villages in deep amethyst twilight. On the weathered dais outside Dishun's ancient stronghold, Revan stood before a gathering of Jedi, Republic officers, and Mandalorian captains. They awaited his word. Yet Revan spoke not of peace, but of a promise. The galaxy's order would be remade through unity and strength. He raised his blade, gleaming with the pale blue light of a Jedi, but humming with ominous weight, and challenged the assembled to cast off their former titles. Republic generals laid aside their epaulets, Mandalorians unbuckled Beskar pauldrons, and even the Jedi hesitated before relinquishing their cloaks. At that moment, Revan claimed no title of knight or lord, but offered himself as the catalyst for a new era. The Sith Empire's birth was neither subtle nor concealed. Across the Outer Rim and into the unknown regions, hollow transmissions blazed with the emblem of a blood-red crest entwined around dual sabers. Worlds once fractured by conflict now rallied beneath that symbol. Planets under siege by pirates found themselves liberated by black-cloaked legions answering only to Revan's command. Citizens wary yet hopeful emerged to find a new order rising. On Nar Shaddaa, crime lords scoffed, but capitulated when Revan's envoy threatened orbital gantries. Slaves on Onderon were freed as Sith legionnaires marched into throne rooms to disarm corrupt governors. Even Hoth trembled as commandos bulldozed hidden bunkers. Wherever chaos reigned, Revan's empire of shadows took root, not in secrecy, but in open proclamation that old alliances had failed. Beneath the triumphant broadcasts, whispers of dread spread. Witnesses remembered Revan as a Jedi who championed mercy, and some wondered at the cost of his newfound dominion. Under his banner, the Sith enjoyed unprecedented unity, blending Jedi precision with Sith ferocity. War droids drilled beneath crimson banners, while Force-sensitive acolytes studied ancient holocrons. Fleet admirals marveled at the seamless integration of starfighter squadrons. TIE interceptors flanking Republic cruisers, now repurposed as Empire Guard vessels. On Korriban, Revan met the Dark Masters he had once revered. He demeaned none, acknowledging his debt to Sith tradition even as he reshaped their order. Apprentices of old rose to new ranks. Scripts lost to time were restored, and the Sith code was recited in voices both stern and reverent. By molten lava streams, Revan declared that the Sith would no longer hide in secret. They would rule openly. His address to the Dark Council was equal parts homage and manifesto. "We are forged by conflict," he intoned, "but bound by purpose. No longer shall we cower behind masks or puppets. The galaxy will see our strength, and through it, find stability." As he spoke, hollow projections mapped the Empire's advance. New outposts on Ryloth, hyperspace lanes secured around war zones, dreadnoughts arriving at the unknown region's edge. Every gesture underscored his belief that sheer will, channeled through discipline, could order galactic chaos. Despite the grandeur of his proclamation, Revan's gaze lingered on the horizon, where twin suns pierced storm clouds. He sensed tremors beneath distant stars, signs of a greater darkness stirring. The Jedi Council, bruised by his defiance, mobilized their fleets. Republic vessels converged to resist what they now called Sith tyranny. In the unknown regions, an ancient presence stirred at the tremors of Malachor V. Back on Dantooine, beneath the newly erected Imperial banner, citizens whispered of the Empire's promise and its unknown price. Merchants boasted of safer trade corridors, but feared the silent legions that maintained them. Farmers rejoiced at the end of raider attacks, but noted increased levies in Imperial credits. Temple guardians on Ossus wondered about Jedi reliquaries now under Sith protection. Was this stewardship or seizure? As obsidian towers caught the last rays of dying light, Revan stood alone atop the highest parapet. His cloak billowed like a living shadow, half in darkness, half illuminated by the fires of conquest. The empire he forged was strong, but its foundation trembled with unspoken threats. Loyalty tempered by fear, power balanced on a blade's edge. Tomorrow, he would begin the campaign to secure his realm and face the betrayer hidden in his ranks. In that moment of quiet before the storm, Revan closed his eyes and reached out through the Force. He sensed a sting of treachery in the undercurrent, a subtle ripple accompanied by a heartbeat, not his own. The specter of betrayal, once unthinkable, now glimmered at the edge of his vision. As night fell over the Empire's workshops and war rooms, Revan whispered a vow to the shadowed gods of Korriban. "I will find you, and in your fall, prove that true power lies not in fear, but in the will to shape destiny itself." Twilight draped the void above Malachor V in bruised purples and inky blacks as Revan's flagship slipped through the orbiting debris field. Below the planet's surface was a riven scar, jagged craters and shattered spires carved by weapons older than the Republic itself. An eerie green glow pulsed from fissures in the crust, where long-dormant Sith temples lay half-buried beneath obsidian dunes. Revan stood on the bridge, lightsaber clipped at his hip, steel in his gaze. Whatever awaited him here would decide the fate of his fledgling empire. Landing shuttles touched down amid echoes of creaking metal and distant tremors. Revan led a cadre of his most trusted, Bastila Shan, her yellow lightsaber casting ripples of warmth. Canderous Ordo, Mandalorian veteran clad in dented Beskar, and Karth Onasi, Republic captain whose loyalty had been tested and proven. Together, they advanced into the jagged maw of a shattered temple where statues of long-dead Sith warlords loomed above broken altars. In the central chamber, the floor heaved with raw, unstable power. At its heart floated an immense superweapon, the Mass Shadow Generator, its coils thrumming with stolen Force energy. Revan felt the pulse in his own bones, a call to power so intoxicating that even his Jedi-honed will quavered. Yet he knew this device's price. Its activation could rip the planet asunder, but it would annihilate every ship in orbit, Republic and Sith alike. As he approached, the Sith Emperor's voice slithered through the shadows, weaving doubt and promise. "Embrace the darkness, Revan," it hissed. "Seize ultimate victory. Let all who oppose you be reduced to ash." Bastila stepped forward, her presence a tether to the light, but Revan hesitated. Before he could answer, Malak emerged from the gloom, crimson saber ignited, eyes alight with ambition. "Brother," he intoned, "why hesitate when destiny lies at our fingertips?" Steel sang as Revan drew his own blade, the two sabers converging in a burst of white-hot sparks. Their duel carved shouting echoes through the temple's vaulted halls, each strike a clash of ideology. Malak's hunger for unassailable power against Revan's vision of order through unity. Meanwhile, Bastila and Canderous labored to disable the generator's control matrix, sweat and oil mingling on circuit panels as they fought the rising instability of the fissures around them. Suddenly, the superweapon roared to life, an unbearable surge that cracked the floor beneath their feet. A shockwave of Force energy threatened to swallow them whole. In that instant, Revan made his choice. With a downward slash, he severed Malak's blade in two, then thrust both halves into the generator's core. The resulting explosion of Force energy engulfed the chamber, peeling back reality itself in a blinding avalanche of light and sound. When the dust settled, the temple lay in ruin. Revan and his surviving allies staggered into waning daylight, the sky above torn by electrical storms. Malachor's surface convulsed, and a wave of dark energy rippled outward, felt by Jedi across the galaxy as a terrible lament. Revan knew the cost. The Sith Emperor had been freed from his prison of Malachite and Force bonds. The Republic fleets were shattered, and Malachor V would forever stand as a monument to both hubris and sacrifice. As Revan watched the planet's core collapse, he carried Bastila from the wreckage, her strength fading, but her spirit unbroken. Around them, the temple's ruins smoldered like a funeral pyre. This was the reckoning he had sought, and the reckoning that would haunt him, the line drawn in blood between hero and villain, savior and destroyer. A hush fell over the ruined temples of Malachor V, as though the world itself exhaled after that incandescent climax. In the pale, fractured dawn, Revan awoke to silence. No alarms, no crackling engines, only the hollow echo of his own breathing. The chamber around him was scarred by Force energy, walls pulsing faintly like dying stars. He lay upon a dais of broken stone, robes tattered, mind a void where memories should have been. Moments passed, or perhaps lifetimes, as Revan pushed himself upright, His hands trembled, not from pain, but from the unsteadiness of purpose unanchored. He tried to recall the skirmish that brought him here, but all he found was emptiness. Faces drifted in and out. Bastila's steadfast eyes, Malak's burning ambition, the Emperor's whispered lies. None anchored him. With effort, he rose, each movement a fragile hope that he was still more than prophecy's pawn. He ventured from the central hall into the temple's outer corridors, guided by dusty shafts of light. Carved gargoyles loomed above, their mouths frozen in silent wails. Broken holocrons lay scattered on flagstones, inscriptions unreadable. He reached for one, fingertips brushing glyphs that thrummed beneath his skin. A spark of remembrance flickered, but it was fleeting. Footsteps echoed behind him, and Revan turned to see Bastila Shan, weary but resolute. Her yellow, bladeless hilt hung at her belt, a beacon that pulled him from the abyss. She spoke his name softly, Revan, and in that single syllable lay the weight of everything he once was. Though he could not recall the bond that tied them, he found solace in her presence, a tether to something pure. Without words, she guided him deeper into the temple, toward chambers bathed in gentle luminescence. In the sanctum's center rested a pristine Jedi holocron, its edges glowing with cerulean light. Bastila pressed a trembling finger to its face, and it activated, projecting the visage of the Jedi Council's archivist. "He is safe," the projection intoned. "Memory cleansing was complete. He will awaken as intended." The holo flickered, images of Jedi Masters fading, and the archivist's final words dissolved into static. Revan stared, heart twisting. Safe. For whom? And why was he meant to forget? Bastila knelt before him, placing her gloved hand over his. "You were lost to the dark," she whispered. "But the Jedi saw a chance to save you. You can walk in the light again." Though he could not recall betrayal or victory, he sensed the truth in her tone. Trust, he realized, was a power older than any blade or war. He nodded, uncertain yet willing to believe. Over the next hours, minutes that stretched like epochs, Revan retrained as a Jedi Padawan. Bastila reacquainted him with meditation, the hum of the Force alive beneath his skin. He relearned the Jedi code: peace, knowledge, serenity. Each precept blossomed like a leaf, tentative but real. He lifted a lightsaber for the first time in ages, its weight both foreign and profoundly his. The blade ignited in a soft blue glow, quivering like a newborn spark in a storm. Yet beneath every lesson lay an unspoken question. What had he sacrificed to merit this second chance? When he closed his eyes, echoes of that final duel at the heart of Malachor 5 flickered at the edge of vision. He glimpsed Malak's betrayal, the Emperor's cage, and the superweapon's roar. But the details slipped like water through clenched fists. Had he chosen wisely when power beckoned? That evening, Bastila led him to the temple's highest terrace. Below, molten rivers of energy snaked through the riven landscape, and above, storms danced across the sky in furious arcs. The two stood side by side, silhouettes against the tempest. Bastila broke the silence. "A new path awaits," she said. "One that honors life, not destruction." Revan inhaled the sulfur and ozone on the wind, feeling it clear the haze in his mind. Though his past lay hidden, his future awaited. As night fell, Revan raised his gaze to distant stars, constellations he could not name, yet felt stirring with promise. The choice before him stretched wide as the galaxy, to follow the light as protector, or let the shadow of his deeds pull him back. He clenched his fist, resolve crystallizing. The Order had given him life anew. He would repay it by shining its light into darkness. Moonlight filtered through the shattered dome of Dantooine's oldest archive, casting fractured patterns on dust-choked holocron pedestals. The ancient structure stood as a monument to the Jedi's past, its walls and floors scarred by time and neglect. Revan, his mind now sharpened by rediscovered purpose, moved with deliberate steps among the broken columns. Each fragment of memory tugged at him, visions of star maps and the whispers of ancient hyperspace routes, long-forgotten paths that had once been the veins of his empire. He paused before an alcove, where faded murals depicted early Jedi cartographers at work, their hands tracing the stars, creating maps of the unknown regions. Beneath their painted figures lay the promise of paths that could lead back to the heart of his former empire, to the distant worlds where the remnants of his reign might still linger. These ancient paths held both the key to his past and a way forward. But to unlock them, he would need every fragment, every piece of the puzzle that could guide him back. Bastila stood at his side, her presence a steady flame in the dim vault, a calm amidst the storm of his thoughts. Together, they activated a lone holocron, its pale light dancing across Revan's determined gaze. The intricate patterns of light illuminated the edges of his face, casting long shadows that seemed to deepen the weight of the decisions ahead. He recalled that several fragments of the star maps rested on distant worlds, Taris, Manaan, and even the ruins of the Old Republic's capital on Coruscant's lowest levels. Each location held a piece of the constellation puzzle that could guide them to the dark and uncharted reaches of Malachor, where the last echoes of his empire still resonated. By dawn, Revan's small team, Bastila, Karth, and 2 loyal Jedi Knights, prepared their vessel for departure. The ship stood ready, its sleek hull gleaming in the soft light of Dantooine's rising sun. Outside, gentle winds stirred the grasses of the plains, as though the land itself was bidding them onward, urging them to continue their quest. Revan offered a silent prayer to the Force, asking for clarity, for guidance on this perilous journey. "Guide our path," he whispered, his voice barely more than a breath. The engines hummed to life, a steady thrum that vibrated through the floor, and as the stars wheeled overhead, the hunt for the star maps began. Their first waypoint lay on Taris, once a vibrant city, now shattered by the Sith's onslaught, its ruins a labyrinth of sunken lower levels and rebel encampments. Revan recalled the horrors he had unwittingly unleashed upon its people. The death, the destruction, the lives lost in the wake of his power. That ache of remorse remained with him, a constant reminder of the darkness he had once embraced. But as he looked to the future, that pain sharpened his resolve. He vowed to reclaim each fragment not as trophies of vengeance, but as keys to redemption. This journey was not one of conquest, but of atonement, a quest to undo the mistakes of his past, to find peace in the midst of chaos. As hyperspace currents carried them onward, Revan meditated on the duality of his quest, to confront the legacy of power he had once wielded, and to master it anew for the cause of light. Each jump through the void brought its own challenges. Pirate raiders seeking relics of the Sith, long-forgotten guardians of ancient holocrons, and the ever-present shadow of Malachor, where his final reckoning had been written in blood. The trials ahead would test not only his strength, but his spirit. Could he truly escape the darkness of his past, or would it forever haunt him? At the threshold of the next system, Revan stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the starfield that would soon reveal Taris's broken silhouette. The ship hummed with anticipation, and he could feel the pulse of destiny in the Force, an energy that seemed to echo through the very stars themselves. This was more than a search for ancient maps. It was a journey to understand the past and the role he had played in shaping it. The fragments of legend that lay scattered across the galaxy must be found, assembled, and understood. If he was to truly atone for the past, to forge a future beyond the shadows that had once consumed him, this was the path he must walk. As Taris drew nearer, the weight of his purpose solidified. Revan knew that with every step forward, he was not just reclaiming pieces of a lost empire, but forging a new destiny for himself, and for the galaxy he had once ruled. This time, it would be a destiny built on the principles of light, hope, and redemption. The hunt for the star maps had begun, and it would lead them into the heart of darkness and back again. Moonlight fell in pale ribbons through the shattered windows of Nar Shaddaa's abandoned shrine, turning crumbling columns into ghostly sentinels. Inside, Revan and Bastila Shan sat cross-legged on a mosaic floor etched with faded constellations, their surroundings swallowed by time and decay. The air hummed with a stillness that seemed to belong neither to the bustling city above, nor to the distant roars of hyperspace engines. A stillness that belonged to the Force itself, quiet and watchful, as if the entire universe held its breath. Revan closed his eyes and extended his senses like ripples across water, reaching beyond the walls of the shrine into the vast expanse of the galaxy. In the hush, he felt Bastila's presence as clearly as his own heartbeat, a steady warmth pulsing through the Force, a resonance that grounded him. It was a bond forged in conflict and danger, through duels with warlords, flights aboard stolen frigates, and the shared burden of guiding fractured Republic worlds towards safety. Yet tonight it felt deeper still, as if their spirits had entwined on some profound level, their energies fusing, their love weaving itself into the very fabric of their souls, strengthening the connection between them with each passing moment. Bastila opened her eyes, her golden hue reflecting the holocron's gentle glow beside them. She reached for Revan's hand, her fingertips brushing his, tracing blades of light along his knuckles. The quiet hum between them resonated, not just through their physical touch, but through the bond they shared, the hum of two halves seeking wholeness. She spoke softly, her voice like wind among dead leaves, the words carrying an ancient truth. "The Force binds more than destinies," she whispered, her eyes locked with his. "It binds us." Around them, scattered on the stone floor, lay relics of their greater quest, fragments of star maps, ancient holocrons, and bent starship components scavenged from Mandalorian outposts. Each piece held a fragment of Revan's past, and a promise of what awaited him when he reclaimed them. Yet in this moment, none of it mattered. The ancient artifacts, the puzzles of the past, the whispered hopes of the future, all of it faded away. Here, on a world that had once teemed with shadows, their shared heartbeat was the true compass guiding them forward, through the Force, through their connection. Revan could feel a tremor of conflict beneath the serenity. Memories whispered at the edge of his mind. Visions of a duel on Malachor 5, the flash of crimson sabers, the roar of a superweapons blast. Those dark flashes threatened to overwhelm him, but he grounded himself in the present, in Bastila's warmth. He reached across the silent space between them, his hand covering hers, their palms meeting in a perfect fit. The touch was grounding, a momentary anchor in the storm of memories that still haunted him. "I remember fragments," he admitted, his voice low, burdened with the weight of those forgotten hours. "But I fear what they summon." Bastila squeezed his hand gently, her eyes soft with understanding. "Fear is the echo of our choices," she said, her words a balm to the rawness inside him. "But we choose what we become." Her presence was unwavering, her connection to him a reminder that despite the shadows of his past, he was not alone in the present. She stood, rising with quiet grace, and pressed her free hand over a holocron carved from pale kyber crystal. The artifact spun open to reveal glyphs of ancient practice, forgotten force techniques of unity, unison meditation once used by Jedi masters to deepen bonds of spirit. It was an invitation, an offering of connection that extended beyond words. Together, they followed the holocron's guidance, breathing in rhythm, eyes closed, focusing on the warmth of each other's presence. Their breathing synchronized, their energy aligned, and they allowed their voices to merge into wordless harmony. The shrine, so full of the ghosts of the past, seemed to come alive around them. A breeze stirred the dust at their feet, carrying with it scents of salt air and distant metal, a reminder of the world outside. The faint murmurs of the city below drifted in, transformed by the force into a tapestry of sound. Cries of markets, the laughter of smugglers, the hum of speeders overhead. All wove around them like threads in a living tapestry, reminding them that their bond was not isolated, but was part of a greater, ever-expanding whole, that they were tied to the universe. As they meditated, the time outside seemed to fade, as if the galaxy itself bent to the peace they cultivated within the shrine. Their spirits, entwined, became one in the Force, the boundaries of individuality dissolving in the purity of shared focus. The city of Nar Shaddaa, once a place of chaos and corruption, seemed to soften, its edges blurring into the gentler rhythms of the living Force. When they opened their eyes, dawn's first light filtered through the fractured glass, painting the mosaic beneath them in soft gold. The cracks in the stone seemed less a symbol of decay and more a testament to the passage of time, a time that had shaped them both. Revan rose, drawing Bastila's hand upward in a silent invitation. She stood with him, and in that shared motion, they clasped their lightsabers, blue and yellow blades crossing in peace, not combat. The glow traced delicate patterns on the walls, illuminating ancient murals of Jedi pairs who had walked this path long before, reminding them that they were not the first to bind their spirits together. Revan studied Bastila's face, her features soft in the golden light, so close that he could read every flicker of thought in her eyes. "Where you shine," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "I will follow." Her smile was a sunrise in his heart, dispelling shadows he had not known lingered there, the warmth of it casting a light he had never known he needed. They departed the shrine hand in hand, stepping into corridors where holoscreens flickered with calls for aid and distress signals from worlds caught in renewed Sith attacks. Their bond, renewed beneath Nar Shaddaa's shattered dome, would be the light they carried into the darkness. Each would protect the other, forging strength from love. As they hunted the final fragments of the star maps and confronted the ghosts of Revan's empire's past. In their union, they were no longer just two souls. Together, they were a force of destiny, unbreakable and unyielding. A heavy silence fell across the bridge of Revan's flagship as the dreadnought loomed before them, its obsidian hull reflecting distant starlight like a jagged shard of night. The stars themselves seemed to hesitate in the face of its dark majesty. No turbo lasers fired, no alarms clamored. Only the low hum of the ship's engines and the collective breath of REVAN'S inner circle echoed through the corridors. Here, at the heart of the enemy's power, the fate of light and shadow would be decided in one final, soul-shattering confrontation. Revan moved with deliberate calm, cloaked in the weight of destiny. His footsteps were steady, a reflection of the quiet resolve that had carried him across galaxies and through countless battles. Beside him, Bastila walked with equal purpose, her yellow lightsaber unlit but ever present at her hip. A quiet promise of unity, her loyalty unwavering. Behind them, Karth Onasi and Canderous Ordo moved in step, their resolve as unyielding as the battered armor they wore. Javaxis, the droid scout who had once betrayed the Emperor's hidden throne room through encrypted transmissions, led the group through winding maintenance ducts and across precarious catwalks suspended over yawning chasms of void. Each step was a step closer to the end. They emerged into a vast chamber, the size of a small moon, where black pillars rose like ancient sentinels. Each one was carved with runes that pulsed with forbidden power, glowing with an eerie light that filled the air with an oppressive energy. At the center of the room, on a dais of floating basalt, sat the Emperor's throne, a sculpted seat of dark crystal, its contours shifting like living shadows, as though it were part of some dark and unholy creature. Seated upon it was the Sith Emperor himself, cloaked in midnight robes that billowed as though stirred by unseen winds, his face obscured in shadow. His presence shimmered through the Force like an unending eclipse, a black hole consuming all that was light. Revan stepped forward, lightsaber igniting in a burst of pale blue light that cast dancing reflections against the walls, illuminating the chamber in fleeting shadows. "Your reign of fear ends now," he intoned, voice steady, yet charged with the accumulated weight of countless battles. His words were not just a declaration, but the closing of an era. Around him, his companions formed a protective ring, their sabers drawn and ready to defend if the shadows surged against them. The Emperor rose with a grace that belied the immense power contained within him. His own blade emerged from the folds of his cloak, a ripple of crimson flame cutting through the dark. "You are but a fragment of the weapon I forged," he sneered, his voice a serpentine whisper. "Your defiance is as fleeting as starlight before dawn." The air itself seemed to shudder in response. Runes along the black pillars glowed with infernal light. The dais trembled as though awakening from a long slumber. Revan could feel it, the pulse of raw Force energy gathering, a tempest that threatened to consume all who stood in its path. His eyes closed for a moment, centering himself on the bond he shared with Bastila, on the promise he had made to protect the Republic and the brothers and sisters bound by hope. This fight was not just his, it was theirs as well. With a cry that echoed like clashing thunder, Revan surged forward, his saber meeting the Emperor's in a shower of sparks and rippling Force waves. Each strike rang through the dais, sending shivers across the floating stones. Bastila flanked Revan, her blade weaving protective arcs through the storm of dark-side lances the Emperor summoned from the very air itself. Karth and Canderous engaged the phantom guards that materialized from the shadows, their combat prowess buying precious seconds for Revan and Bastila to press the attack. Blows fell in a furious dance. Revan's precision met the Emperor's overwhelming power in a ballet of light and dark. Every parry drew upon memories, glimpses of Mandalore's battlefields, the ash of Malachor 5, and the first glow of his lightsaber under Dantooine's dawn. With each recollection, his resolve deepened, forging clarity from the chaos of their confrontation. At the crescendo of their clash, the Emperor unleashed a tempest of force lightning, the bolts arcing toward Revan like living serpents. Bastila leapt between them, her saber humming defiantly as it absorbed the crackling energy. The recoil sent her skidding across the floor, but she remained standing, eyes fierce with unwavering determination. Revan seized the moment, channeling his will into a single surging strike that cleaved through the Emperor's defense, sending shockwaves through the air. The Emperor's dark crystal throne shattered into shards, sending a shockwave that shook the chamber's foundations. A cathedral of silence followed. The Emperor fell to one knee, his body trembling as the weight of centuries of tyranny collapsed around him. Runes dimmed. The oppressive shadows that had once seemed to govern the chamber retreated. Revan stood over the fallen Sith, his blade poised at the Emperor's throat. The room held its breath, the air heavy with anticipation. In the hush, he recalled Bastila's words. Mercy is the greatest strength. The thought echoed through his mind. This was his moment to choose. Instead of delivering the final blow, Revan deactivated his saber and extended a hand, offering redemption rather than vengeance. The Emperor's face remained hidden, but in that gesture lay a turning point. The victory did not belong to Revan alone, but to the light he had chosen to champion. Around them, the chamber's oppressive shadows dissolved, revealing a ship freed from its master's corrupting grip. Revan turned to his companions, his family forged in battle, and together they stepped away from the dais, leaving behind the throne of an empire built on fear. Beyond the viewport, stars glimmered with new promise, the endless void now a canvas for hope. The galaxy awaited its savior, not as conqueror, but as the Jedi Knight who had shaped destiny through compassion. Yet even as the dreadnought systems hummed to life with a loyal, though shaken crew, Revan sensed that the true journey was not yet over. There remained one final piece, the hope that the galaxy might forgive a hero once lost to shadow. Revan descended onto Coruscant's marble landing platform amid the dawn's first glow, the city planet's infinite spires catching the light of twin suns, cresting the galactic horizon. The air shimmered with the charge of anticipation. Above, skylanes paused in reverent stillness. Below, the Senate Plaza overflowed with citizens held in breathless awe. A Republic delegation stood ready, senators draped in ceremonial crimson, Jedi masters in flowing robes of white and grey, each present to witness the return of a warrior, long thought lost to myth. As he stepped forward, his boots echoing on ancient stone, hollow transmissions captured his every movement, beaming the image across billions of datapads and public holoscreens. Children in the slums of level 1313 saw the same silhouette that elders in Alderaanian palaces watched. All across the Republic, the legend of Revan returned in living form, no longer just a name in fragmented records or whispered tales, but a presence, scarred, solemn, and undeniably real. Before the assembled Jedi Council in the High Temple's grandest hall, beneath a vaulted ceiling woven with starlight and crystal, Revan knelt in silence. Grand Master Vencia, a Mirialan with skin like mossed stone, stepped forward. Her voice rang through the chamber, not with judgment, but renewal, as she spoke his name. Once uttered in accusation, now spoken in absolution. Each counselor lowered their head, and from the folds of their robes produced glowing kyber shards. Azure and amethyst, green and white, symbols of trust once shattered, but now reforged. They placed them into his awaiting hands, one by one, No blade was ignited, for the moment was not of battle, but of peace. The crystals pulsed faintly in his palms, as though recognizing a master reborn. Senators rose from their seats, placing hands over hearts, and the chamber rang with applause, not performative, but thunderous and true. Across the vast colonnades of the temple district, citizens raised their voices, and the applause became a tide. Some wept. Others simply stood in stillness, witnessing a day thought impossible. Coruscant's populace, battered by wars, betrayals, and fear, welcomed the return of a savior, a symbol that perhaps balance was not only an idea, but a path once more walkable. REVAN'S voice, calm yet resonant, carried through the hall like a temple bell. He pledged service once more to the Order and the Republic he had helped build, nearly destroyed, and sought again to protect. He spoke not of conquest, nor even of victory, but of cost, of the scars left by Malachor V, of choices made in darkness, and the burden of memory regained. His words struck not as grand declarations, but as honest confession. He did not hide from the darkness he had known. He embraced it as a warning. Jedi younglings shifted from reverence to wonder, some seeing in him their first real understanding of fallibility and redemption. Knights and masters alike lowered their heads in respect, feeling the tremor of destiny settle into firm resolve. In that vaulted hall, a long-fractured order found cohesion again, not in dogma, but in example. Later that day, Revan was escorted beneath the domes of the Senate chamber, the polished floors and arched transparisteel windows, framing a skyline cast in amber. As he entered, arguments stilled. Senators from core worlds to mid-rim outposts stood in unison. The Chancellor spoke briefly, invoking ancient articles of honor before yielding the floor entirely. Monitors suspended above the assembly displayed slices of his storied past. Holograms of Revan leading forces at the Battle of Cathar, confronting the Mandalore in personal combat, kneeling at the feet of the Emperor only to rise in rebellion. Clips followed of his exile, of Bastilla's search for him, and the dark corridors he navigated within himself before choosing light again. His sacrifice, his refusal to let his memory be a weapon, was no longer forgotten. It became Republic Canon. Proclamations were issued, one naming him a hero of the Republic, another enshrining his likeness in the Hall of Galactic Remembrance. More than ceremony, these acts were meant to affirm a unified resolve, a declaration that vigilance must never again fall to complacency, nor power to unchecked pride. As evening fell, Coruscant transformed into a galaxy of golden lights and soaring repulsor craft, the city alive with reverent celebration. Revan stood on the Senate balcony, robes rustling in the breeze. Below him, oceans of glass reflected starlight and speeders alike, the city aglow like a nebula turned inward. Beside him stood Bastilla Shan, her presence quiet and grounding. She placed a hand on his shoulder, not in reassurance nor ceremony, but in shared survival, in memory, in love. They had walked through shadow together, each bearing wounds time could not erase, yet here they stood, together still. In that moment, the line between myth and mortal blurred, and then dissolved entirely. The figure once called Darth Revan, once vanished into the outer rim, once a ghost of galactic consequence, stood not as memory, but as Jedi Knight, guardian of peace, sentinel of balance, witness to the fragility of all things. And beneath the stars of a galaxy healing, Revan's watch began anew, Night enveloped the jungles of Dromund Kaas in a chorus of croaking creatures and distant thunder. Rain hissed through the canopy in fine mist, feeding the vines that curled like serpents around ancient stone. Beneath these tangled crowns of green and shadow, hooded acolytes gathered in silence around a lone holocron, its pale violet light flickering like a heartbeat against the slick, mossy ground. Their whispered chants wove through the damp air like a hymn, honoring the fallen hero who had walked both light and dark. Revan. In the heart of their hidden compound, carved from basalt and swallowed by the jungle's roots, Tari Darkspanner stood beneath a collapsed archway, its stones etched with forgotten Sith runes. Her dark cloak bore the sigil of dual sabers encircling a fractured kyber crystal, an emblem of convergence. Before her lay a spread of scrolls and data cards, relics retrieved from tombs beneath Korriban's sands. She lifted one with care, revealing faded Aurebesh inscriptions and a hand-drawn rendering of Revan's mask. "We heed his balance," she intoned, her voice steady. For Revan taught that neither light nor shadow alone can secure our fate. Around her, the assembled faces of humans, Twi'leks, and red-skinned Sith-born acolytes reflected flickering devotion. They listened, not as disciples to a master, but as believers to a shared legacy. One by one, they extended their hands over the holocron's glow and pledged themselves to the Order of Revan, an unorthodox sect bound by their faith in a figure whose history could neither cage nor condemn. Far above them, perched on a ridge cloaked in vines, the skeleton of an old Sith temple lay silent beneath moonlight. Its once menacing spires, now cracked and hollowed by time, watched over the jungle like forgotten sentinels. Carved reliefs, once honoring the cruel ambitions of long-dead lords, now bore subtle alterations. Lines smoothed into symmetry, expressions softened with care. Acolytes moved through the temple's broken halls, replacing tattered crimson banners with ones bearing Revan's sigil. In secluded alcoves, they inscribed glyphs of unity, blending Jedi serenity with Sith strength, weaving teachings that no single code could contain. At the compound's center, the holocron pulsed. From within its crystal lattice, echoes of Revan's life flickered in haunting clarity. The Mandalorian battlefields littered with flame and steel, the obsidian wastelands of Malachor, where the air itself mourned, the marble stillness of the Jedi temple, where silence condemned knowledge, and the throne room of the Sith Emperor, where Revan stood alone between annihilation and revelation. Each projection stirred something fierce and fragile in the hearts of the gathered faithful. They believed their master's spirit had not vanished, only transformed. His will dispersed like embers across the galaxy, waiting to catch flame once more. Some said they had heard Revan's voice in dreams or glimpsed his mask in temple shadows. Others spoke of coded messages embedded in holoreports, subtle shifts in force flows, or relics that responded only to those who walked the narrow divide between peace and power. All believed that in time, Revan's legacy would reshape the Empire from within, not through conquest, but through conversion, not by wielding fear, but by transcending it. Whispers grew of high-ranking Imperials and disillusioned Jedi already touched by Revan's ideals, agents in place, unaware of their own roles in the slow turning of the wheel. Thus, across the unknown regions and into the galactic fringe, a network of informants, warriors, and mystics pulsed like a hidden heartbeat. Each one lay dormant, waiting for the signal, the day when their collective voice would rise into a chorus that could echo across star systems and crack the very foundation of old empires. As dawn threatened the horizon, staining the sky in bruised violet, Tari ascended the central dais. She raised a chalice carved from fractured kyber, its sharp edges glinting with pale fire. Within it swirled water drawn from a wellspring beneath the temple, water believed to have run past Revan's own resting place in some forgotten age. "To Revan," she declared, her voice rising above the rustling leaves. "His time may have passed, but his movement endures." In unison, the Order of Revan lifted their voices, not as a chant, but as a vow. Each syllable rang with conviction, raw, unpolished, real. The promise carried beyond the jungle's edge, carried by wind and memory, slipping into the warp of hyperspace like a whisper that refuses to die. Though Revan himself remained lost among the stars, or perhaps diffused within the Force, his myth had become movement, a signal, a question with no single answer. Across the galaxy's edge, where Republic and Sith alike whispered his name in awe or fear, the seeds of a new saga took root in silence. And as long as holocrons glimmered in hidden sanctuaries, as long as minds searched for more than dogma, the echoes of Revan would never fade. Not with time, not with war, not with death. Feel the galaxy fall silent around you as we linger in the space between question and answer, where shadows of possibility coalesce into whispered promise. In this stillness, we chart our path by 5 guiding pillars, each a measure of Revan's return from myth into canon. First, feasibility. Can Lucasfilm's storytellers and the tapestry of rites weave this epic without tearing the fabric of continuity? Next, canonical evidence. Do the holocrons, databanks, or hidden concept sketches already murmur his coming? Then, narrative fit. Will his resurgence flow through the current saga's currents, or clash like converging force storms? Fourth, fan momentum. Does the chorus of devotees wield enough fervor to stir the architects of lore? And finally, future impact. Should Revan step from legend into light, would his shadow reshape destinies of Jedi, Sith, Republic, and beyond? Breathe deeply, and as the breath fades, let us step into our first theory of speculation. Number 10. Acolyte's ancient shadow. Feel the galaxy's hush deepen as we step beyond known thresholds, into the realm where light and dark whisper in tandem. In the sacred twilight of possibility, we begin our descent. In the hush before revelation, imagine a cadenced hum vibrating through polished obsidian floors. A single chamber, bathed in moonlight filtered through narrow slits of ancient stone, holds its breath as amber glyphs ignite upon the surrounding walls, sigils older than the Republic itself. From this luminous tapestry emerges a figure draped in ebony robes, his mask a void of crimson and bone. The room trembles as his holographic form shimmers into being, voice woven from distant echoes and fading screams, guiding untested novices through verses of arcanum cloaked in darkness. These acolytes, drawn by curiosity, ambition, or desperation, gather at the threshold of a hidden sanctum deep beneath the temple's foundations. Their faces, half lit by the rune's glow, register awe and apprehension as the spectral lord strides through corridors of light and shadow alike. His tone is low and unhurried, each syllable a velvet promise of forbidden knowledge, spoken not to convince, but to awaken. He speaks of balance and betrayal, of choices forged in agony, of paths both luminous and abyssal. Riddles unfold like layered veils, binding eager minds with silken threads of mystery. Within his lesson lies the pulse of ancient wars. He recounts long-vanished battles where his double-bladed saber cleaved through Jedi phalanxes in swirling arcs of light and ruin, where ambition carved new empires from the wreckage of star systems, and where even redemption was a crucible lined with blood and fire. Yet these tales remain half-formed, deliberately incomplete, parables laced with contradiction. His apparition does not lecture but dares. He invites the next generation to test loyalties, to ask which sacrifice is noble and which is merely ruinous vanity. As glyphs flicker and fade, the chamber exhales. The acolytes bow their heads, hearts pounding to an unseen rhythm. In their veins, the Force stirs with questions. Could legends truly cross centuries? Does power slumber, waiting only for a spark? Revan's silhouette dissipates into amber motes, scattering like dying embers before the night. A distant wind sighs through cracked archways, carrying the soft clatter of holocron locks and the faint scent of ancient incense. Somewhere beyond the temple, sentinels patrol weather-worn parapets, their silhouettes etched against a field of endless stars. The echo of a solitary footstep feels like an answer or a challenge. In that moment, worship and fear entwine. Every breath becomes sacred, every heartbeat an omen of things yet to come. The theory's allure lies in its subtlety. No grand battles break out on screen, no entire worlds collapse. Instead, a fleeting hologram alters the trajectory of students who may one day reshape the galaxy. It is the quiet turning of a key, almost imperceptible, yet powerful enough to unlock corridors of destiny. In the hush, this cameo becomes a catalyst for speculation, a seed planted in the fertile imaginations of those who listen too closely or dream too deeply. What follows might not be visible for years, but its echo will be unmistakable. Consider how this vision might ripple through the Acolyte's broader narrative. A high republic tinged with shadow, where even the brightest halls harbor whispers of a legacy once thought extinguished. Revan's presence, though momentary, would reverberate through council chambers and monastery hearths alike, a ghost in the corner of every doctrine. His existence reminds us that history conceals as much as it reveals, and that the dark is never fully banished, only sleeping. When the final rune dims, silence reigns. The temple doors creak open, inviting those bold enough to follow cryptic paths into the unknown. Behind them lingers an ember of doubt and wonder, a promise left half-spoken, the kind that lives longer than memory itself. Under our 5 guiding pillars, this fleeting apparition sparks both doubt and fervent anticipation across fandom. Some see a phantom, others a herald, but all feel the shadow shift. A tremor stirs the currents of fate as we cross the threshold into fractured echoes, where every possibility shimmers briefly before vanishing into the void. Here, each shard of speculation beckons with its own promise and peril. Within these liminal spaces, memory is not fixed. It is a kaleidoscope. Within a hidden vault lost to time, an archivist discovers a holocron unlike any before, a sphere of obsidian veined with fractal cracks, humming softly with unmeasured energy. When activated, it does not play a single message, but fractures reality itself, ushering the viewer into 10 standalone vignettes. Each flicker of light from the device unfolds a different version of Revan, each echo shaped by choice, consequence, or chaos. In one vision, Episode 1, The Iron Redeemer, Revan emerges as a unifying force in a galaxy shattered by war. His azure blade arcs through Mandalorian warlords, not in vengeance, but in defiance of annihilation. Council chambers once paralyzed by fear rally under his guidance. His voice, calm yet commanding, calls for strength through unity, for wisdom beyond dogma. Planets, once reduced to ash, stir with hope again. Under star-streaked skies, refugee fleets return home, and temples once desecrated are restored by firelight and prayer. Yet in stark contrast, Episode 2, The Crimson Emperor, immerses us in Revan's darkest mirror. Twin suns blaze against scarlet armor as he sits atop an obsidian throne, surrounded by fire and fear. His saber is a brand of judgment, his decrees final. Republic senators bow or burn. Whole cities vanish beneath skyborne bombardments. From a monastery cliff, a lone monk gazes silently toward the horizon, lips moving in prayer, hoping for something, anything, to outlast the Empire of Dread. Each subsequent tale peels back a new layer of potential. One shows Revan as a soft-spoken diplomat, brokering peace among squabbling systems with quiet authority. Another reveals a cloistered scholar buried in a remote archive, unraveling the Force's secrets with infinite patience and unblinking clarity. In yet another, he is an outlaw cloaked in rags, racing across hyperspace with only vengeance in his blood and a stolen saber at his hip. Through it all, the archivist's narration threads a single truth. In one realm, he was savior. In another, scourge. Yet all are echoes of a single will. Visually, the anthology unfolds as a symphony of refracted light. Imagine holocron shards, amber, violet, cerulean, suspended mid-air in a chamber of impossible geometry, each pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. As the camera drifts between them, we glimpse moments. Revan sparring with acolytes beneath a moonless sky. Revan weeping in the rain-soaked ruins of Coruscant. Revan kneeling before a forgotten shrine. Mask resting on moss-covered stone. Each vision is brief, like a dream fading upon waking, but each lingers in the mind, whispering, what if this was the truth? The theory thrives on the momentum of fandom. Forums ignite with speculation over which episode resonates most. Artists bring each vision to life through vivid renderings. Cosplay communities create elaborate variations on each divergent Revan. Collectible hollow shards, each etched with a different set of runes, become prized artifacts of imagination. Yet among all the wonder, one question persists. Can Lucasfilm justify a multiverse without fracturing the cohesive tapestry of the Skywalker saga? The anthology sidesteps this conflict with elegant restraint. Marketed as a legendary sidebar, it remains proudly non-canonical under the Lucasfilm publishing banner, a space where creators may explore freely, unconstrained by strict continuity. It offers new fans an entry point unburdened by lineage, while rewarding longtime devotees with echoes, references, and mythic breadcrumbs. Under our 5 guiding pillars, this multiverse anthology ranks higher than a cameo and lower than full resurrection. Its strength lies not in strict narrative integration, but in creative possibility and the communal spirit it inspires. As the fractured holocron dims, its shards drift apart like stars receding into deep space. Each fragment is a whisper of what might have been, a mirror reflecting dreams, regrets, and unrealized hopes. In that fading light, possibility itself becomes legend. And legend, as we know, never truly dies. A subtle shift in the Force ripples through memory as we leave the mirrored halls of possibility behind and step into a vision both haunting and hopeful. This is not merely speculation. It is an echo wrapped in mystery, whispered through the threads of animation and lore. In the quiet before dawn on Lothal, Ezra Bridger walks alone through the overgrown ruins of an ancient temple, a forgotten place where the Force's currents still run deep and undisturbed. The stone beneath his boots is cracked with age, and scattered blossoms bloom through its fractures. Around him the air hums with latent power as violet motes drift lazily between broken pillars. Each one a silent testament to battles long past and teachings long buried. The temple seems to breathe, as if the galaxy itself is holding its breath. Ezra's path, uncertain yet fated, leads him deeper into a circular chamber, carved from the rock like the inside of a forgotten star. Its walls are etched with archaic glyphs and rune-like spirals that glow faintly beneath the ghost light of Lothal's twin moons. The glyphs pulse with life as he enters, responding to his presence like an ancient heart slowly awakening. Then, within an orb of swirling mist at the center of the chamber, a figure begins to emerge. He is tall, robed, and masked, a silhouette stitched together by drifting tendrils of violet aura. His features are obscured, but his posture is regal, burdened with memory. His mask, split with streaks of crimson and obsidian, seems carved not from metal, but from time itself. His presence feels at once intimate and impossibly distant, as though the very galaxy remembers him, even when history has tried to forget. Ezra halts. His breath catches, and for a heartbeat, time seems to warp. The figure does not speak aloud, but communicates through gesture and sensation, each slow movement of his gloved hand unraveling unseen threads of fate. Ezra sees visions behind his eyes, the golden corridors of the Jedi temple on Coruscant, battlefields scattered with the fallen, both light and dark. He sees a mask raised high in defiance and lowered again in surrender. In this dreamlike projection, Revan is not merely a warrior or teacher. He is a prism through which the Force refracts. A lantern illuminating paths Ezra has not yet dared to consider. Violet energy winds its way around Ezra's forearm, gentle, weightless, alive. It does not burn. It teaches. In that moment, he feels the ancient tension between light and dark, the tremble of legacy, and the burden of choice. The Force stirs not in opposition, but in totality. And then, as quickly as he appeared, the figure dissipates. The mist retreats. The runes flicker out. The silence that follows is not empty. It is sacred. Ezra stands alone once more, his heart pounding with unspoken understanding. 1,000 questions burning behind his eyes. Yet something within him feels steadier. He is no longer merely a rebel or a student. He is an heir to something deeper, something that cannot be named. This cameo, though brief, would forge a living link between the High Republic's deepest mysteries, the Rebellion's desperate hope, and the ancient legend of Revan. By leveraging an established model, Ezra's sensitivity to nexuses in the Force, Lucasfilm could blend legacy and innovation, offering continuity without confinement. Visually, the sequence would fuse Mortis-style surrealism with Imperial-era clarity. Violet haze drifting through ribbed arches, chrome-lined holocrons flickering like heartbeats. Revan's silhouette slipping between the real and the unreal. It would feel like a revelation folded into a dream. Brief, arresting, unforgettable. Fan reaction would be immediate. Forums would light up with speculation. Artists would render their own versions of the masked figure. Theories would swirl, and the hunger for answers would deepen. Under our 5 pillars, Rebels' resurrection ranks above rumor, steeped in plausibility and reverence. Its narrative fit is seamless, its emotional impact profound. But still, the question lingers. Will this fleeting vision ever manifest in canonical form? In the lingering violet glow of memory, we sense both a bridge to legends past and a doorway to futures still waiting to be claimed. Let that energy settle within you as we turn our gaze to the next theory. A stillness settles in the air, as though the bones of ancient temples hold their breath, awaiting a voice long silent. It is the kind of silence that hums beneath the surface of memory, the hush before a truth returns to the world. In that charged moment, a hooded figure emerges through the haze of the forgotten, his presence woven into the fate of a lone survivor. In the shadowed aftermath of the Jedi purge, when stars flicker uncertainly and the Order lies scattered like ash on the wind, Cal Kestis wanders distant worlds in search of meaning. He is a phantom in exile, a flame flickering low. One moonless night, guided by instinct and a map half sketched from dreams, he descends into a jungle swallowed by time. Ruins greet him in the deep green silence, vines curling over stone reliefs of valor long since buried, their artistry eroded, but their power intact. Fallen columns cradle pools of starlight, unmoving. The air is thick with the breath of the past. His path narrows into a long corridor, carved from stone so old it seems to sag with memory. Lanterns impossibly still lit, flicker in silent invitation. Their light is golden, subdued, as though the walls themselves are remembering what it is to be warm. Then from within that glow, a figure steps forward, cloak drawn tight, mask glinting beneath a single candle's breath. The air shifts. The force stirs. He is Revan, yet not as the galaxy once knew him. Not the firebrand of the Mandalorian wars, nor the conqueror cloaked in shadow, but something quieter, worn, tempered. His presence is neither dark nor light, but balanced on the blade's edge, a fulcrum of histories. His voice, low and weathered like distant thunder, speaks not in commands, but in riddles drawn from scars. Cal Kestis, he intones, each syllable a ripple in the force. You carry the weight of loss and the spark of hope. To walk the light is to embrace shadow without succumbing to it. With one hand, he traces an arc in the air, slow, deliberate, a motion that for a moment burns with soft blue fire. Glyphs rise and vanish in its wake, fragments of an older language, one the galaxy forgot. Darkness tempts with power, light binds with duty, but only the heart that understands both can walk without fear. His hood falls. The mask does not. But Cal glimpses eyes behind it, eyes that have known both betrayal and deliverance, and in them, a quiet grief, worn down into wisdom. Memories flicker through the chamber like stray motes, the glow of twin suns, the silence of fallen holocrons, the scream of warships breaking orbit. In this space, these fragments converge, not into doctrine, but into something deeper. Revan moves again, demonstrating a subtle gesture, barely more than a breath. A redirection, a surrender that bends attack into grace.
Mastery, Cal realizes, is not conquest. It is harmony.
The hall shivers with echoes. Revan walks between lanterns now. sometimes visible, sometimes not. A memory made flesh. He speaks of Malachor 5, of the cost of unchecked will, of the quiet that follows ruin. Learn from ghosts, he says, his voice thinning like candlelight. Let silence be your counsel. Let stillness teach you. The light dims. The jungle sighs. Revan steps back into the shadows. Remember this chamber, he whispers. When the galaxy trembles, return to its heart, and let balance guide your hand. With that, he vanishes. A breath in the dark, a ripple fading. Cal is alone. Only the soft clink of wind against stone remains. He steps forward, places his hand on the mask left atop a broken altar. Cold, worn, etched with crimson lines that catch the flickering light. The lesson lingers, wordless but whole. True strength is not in the brightness of the light, nor the pull of the dark, but in the quiet courage to stand between them. Outside, the jungle stirs. Stars wheel slowly overhead. And far behind him, a single lantern still burns. A low hum of anticipation drifts through the corridors of memory as we step from hidden mentors into the heart of legend, Reborn. Here, in the hush between eras, something ancient stirs, not merely remembered, but rewritten, not just preserved, but awakened. Imagine the opening crawl recast. The golden letters drift through a deepening void, not just marking time, but unraveling the breath of myth. This is no longer a tale archived in holocrons or locked in dusty databanks. It is a living story, newly woven, its threads stretching from the dusk of the Old Republic to the final echoes of the Skywalker saga. The remake begins not with blaster fire or politics, but with wind. The soft, endless wind of Dantooine brushes the tall grass, whispering along the ruins. Here, REVAN'S first steps echo anew, reshaped by fresh voice work, each syllable chosen to ripple forward, to speak softly of futures not yet written. Early dialogue hints at tremors in the Force that touch even Coruscant's Senate chambers. Echoes felt in the Senate, one counselor murmurs, as if the Force itself leans toward change. Every decision Revan makes, whether rescue, hesitation, or ruthlessness, sends subtle currents through unseen halls of power. As the campaign unfolds, Coruscant looms not just as a name spoken, but as a destination, a city world where stories converge and time bends. The Jedi Council there, lit by the golden wash of galactic sunrise, debates the ancient anomaly. This disturbance, one master says gravely, mirrors betrayals we dared not name. To fans, these lines echo not only the weight of history, but the unease of a future already glimpsed, whispers that reach from Revan to Palpatine, from Exar Kun to Snoke. Korriban, too, returns in haunting splendor. When Revan walks its shattered surface and faces the final choice, compassion or domination, that moment no longer stands alone. A holocron, unearthed years later by Luke Skywalker, speaks of it. A prophecy long buried becomes entwined. A new line from Kylo Nord, cold and offhand. The light outlasts the Forge's fires, spreads through generations, echoing in resistance cells as quiet defiance. Even the confrontation with Malak, now reimagined, is softened with weight. There is no triumph without toll. Defeat becomes a seed of redemption. And that seed, nurtured in silence, blossoms centuries later in Leia's unwavering courage, in Rey's final stand. Visually, the remake bridges the mythic and the modern. The Starforge rises not in deep space, but cast against the skyline of Coruscant itself. An impossible monolith, part dream, part wound. Its hull reflects neon city light, while shadows fall across Jedi statues buried beneath Senate halls. In fragmented cutscenes, we glimpse timelines bleeding together, clones bearing REVAN'S emblem, Jedi Masters lost in visions, archives flickering with unknown sigils. One brief moment shows a hooded figure beside a Mortis symbol, barely seen, but unforgettable. The galaxy watches, HoloNet forums ignite. Live streams run for hours, frame by frame. Fans scour temple mosaics for glyphs. Does that swirl suggest Exegol? Was that background chant borrowed from the world between worlds? Cosplayers begin crafting robes that blend REVAN'S silhouette with sequel-era detailing. Even merchandise whispers its way into existence. Statues showing REVAN overlooking Coruscant. Concept art that folds time like paper. Under our 5 guiding pillars, this theory stands unshaken. Its feasibility rises with every Lucasfilm Games announcement. Canonical alignment strengthens with each new line, each echo. The narrative arc weaves effortlessly into established myth. Fan momentum is no longer speculation, it's gravitational. And future impact. It promises not only to rewrite REVAN'S place in the galaxy, but to deepen every saga that followed. In the dawning glow of a restored Star Forge, we glimpse not only the past, but a future touched by myth. REVAN, reborn in voice and vision, becomes once more the question that haunts the galaxy. Can one choose light after walking so far in shadow? Let that question settle within you as we move forward, toward the next echo. A murmur rises from worlds beyond the holonet, soft at first, like static in the Force. But as voices join across systems and sectors, it gathers strength, a chant forged of hope and memory. A single resonant plea emerges from the noise. Cast Keanu as REVAN. In that swell of collective longing, a theory takes form, not loud, but unshakable, like the hum of a lightsaber before its blade ignites. Imagine the moment. A packed auditorium shields its breath. The lights dim, casting thousands into hush. One spotlight pierces the dark, illuminating a pedestal veiled in crimson cloth. The silence is reverent, almost sacred. Then, with the slow precision of ceremony, the cloth falls away, revealing the mask. Scarlet and bone white, REVAN'S legacy, unblinking. A ripple stirs through the crowd. Cameras flash like distant stars. Then, from hidden speakers above, a voice breaks the silence. Calm, deep, steady. I am REVAN, not shouted, not embellished, just spoken, with gravity honed in silence. It is Keanu Reeves, his cadence tempered, carrying the weight of millennia in a single breath. Across the galaxy, screens flicker to life. From the corporate spires of Coruscant to the crystal sands of Cantonica, the teaser ripples outward like a tremor through hyperspace. Social feeds erupt. Fan holos stutter under the weight of shares and replays. Forums once divided fall silent, then roar in unison. Side-by-side comparisons dominate the feed. Reeves weathered calm beside the silent mask, his battle-honed gaze beneath the hood of shadow, A new constellation forms in real time. Hashtags like Revan Reeves, #chosen from the shadows, and the one. We've been waiting for light, the stars of trending grids. Some say it was inevitable. Whispers swirl from inside Lucasfilm's guarded walls. Production staff speak in hushed tones of test footage never meant to be seen. Of Keanu, cloaked and contemplative, drifting through the Jedi archives on Coruscant. The camera lingers on the hem of his robe as it brushes ancient stone. Holotables project forgotten star maps across his face, the mask cradled like a relic between destinies. Though no press release confirms the rumors, Lucasfilm does what it always does best: teases truth with myth. One frame, one flicker of holotext. Keanu Reeves, Project, Revan, just enough to fuel the fire. What began as a dream now blurs the boundary between fandom and canon. The campaign stands on 5 pillars. Its feasibility rests on Reeves's enduring star power, his presence as bankable as it is beloved. His schedule, often cloaked in mystery, leaves room, just enough for a role that demands more silence than speech. Its canonical evidence lies hidden in plain sight. A voice cameo, brief, spectral, layered into the static of ancient holocrons. A shadow in the crowd during visions. All budget-friendly, all narratively plausible. Its narrative fit is seamless. Revan's tale is one of memory, conflict, duality. Reeves, long a master of quiet intensity, brings depth without demand. His portrayal would let the myth breathe. A man shaped by war. Redeemed not through grand gestures, but quiet choices. Fan momentum is unstoppable. Artists render posters overnight. Cosplayers fuse Reeves' likeness with the classic silhouette. Animatics go viral. Even mainstream networks echo the chant. Interviews, speculation, polls that lean heavy toward yes. A casting wish becomes an inevitability. And finally, future impact. Should this campaign bear fruit, it promises not just a performance, but a legend reawakened. A chance to tether ancient myth to modern cinema. A bridge from the old republic to the edge of current canon, walked not with spectacle, but with reverence. In the quiet after the teaser ends, one still hears it. That line, spoken once, echoing endlessly through time. I am Revan. A whisper turned into prophecy. A hope, crystallized in voice. And perhaps, just perhaps, the beginning of a truth long waiting to be revealed. Let the stars bear witness. Let the shadow rise again. A hush falls over the Force as ancient echoes stir anew in the Mortis nexus, where life and death entwine like twin serpents in eternal rotation. Here, the veil between past and future grows thin, and the breath of prophecy stirs dust on the stones of forgotten myth. In the dimly lit chamber of the Father's temple, the triad of Force guardians stands in stony vigil, daughter in radiant grace, son in shifting shadow, and their deity, calm and grave, enthroned between them. Their silence hums like a chant long buried, until the atmosphere bends and the Force trembles. From that shimmering tension, a fourth silhouette emerges, slow, spectral, and deliberate. His mask half lit by the temple's phosphorescent glow, its crimson and ivory surface reflecting not only light, but legend. Revan drifts into view, neither Holy Spirit nor flesh, a living memory made manifest in a place that exists outside time. His presence is at once familiar and foreign, like the echo of a prophecy misremembered yet inevitable. Anakin, drawn forward as if by an unseen tide, stares wide-eyed at the figure before him. He senses battles waged across centuries and the toll of choices etched into Revan's very presence. Obi-Wan's hand finds his saber, its emitter hissing faintly, not in threat but in reflex, his stance balanced between caution and reverence. A breeze born not of air but of memory flows through the chamber. Then Revan speaks. His voice is no louder than a whisper, yet it resonates as though channeled through the heart of the Force itself. "You stand where destinies are born," he says, each syllable a note in a song sung before the stars took shape. "Choices here echo across eras. Beware the path that severs connection, for even the brightest light casts the darkest shadow." Around him, blue and red motes rise in a slow, spiraling dance, like embers from an unseen fire. Revan's hands move, not to threaten, but to reveal. Within the curl of his fingers, visions bloom. Temples, both ancient and not yet built, bathed in twilight. Holocrons flickering with forbidden truths. Jedi robes darkened not by corruption, but by the heavy toll of survival. Armies, silent and spectral, marching across stars long forgotten. And at the center of it all, choice. Not destiny, but choice, raw and staggering. He shares glimpses of his own long journey, Malachor's ashes clinging to his boots, the moment he turned from vengeance toward atonement, the friends lost, the paths forsaken, the redemption earned not in triumph, but in quiet surrender. His presence does not preach, it offers. Each image, each memory, is a lesson without judgment, a possibility unspoken. As the wind of the Force grows still, Revan closes his hands, and the visions fade like mist. With a slow nod, he steps backward, his outline beginning to fragment. The cerulean shimmer of his form twists into tendrils, dissolving into the ethereal current, joining the spiral of spirits that swirl forever through Mortis. No farewell is spoken, none is needed. The temple sighs. Its walls, though stone, seem to breathe, as if some deeper understanding has settled into their ancient bones. Anakin lowers his lightsaber, the blade hissing closed. His expression is not fear nor awe, but something quieter. Recognition. Obi-Wan, hands clasped behind his back, stands motionless, though within him the weight of 1,000 questions coils tighter. In that moment of silence, the nexus pulses once, not loudly, not dramatically, but like a heart resuming its beat after long pause. The Force does not explain. It never does. But in that chamber of echoes, something has shifted. Revan's shade, though fleeting, has left more than vision. It has carved a truth into the air, subtle, lingering, indelible. Balance is not a choice. It is a journey, and its path winds through all who dare walk between the dark and the light. A chill wind of reverence sweeps through forgotten catacombs as we descend into the heart of fanatic devotion, where the air itself seems to hum with ancient rites. This is no place of light, nor of shadow, only of raw will and belief, compressed through centuries into ritual. Deep beneath Exegol's storm-scarred surface, a concealed stair spirals into a vaulted sanctum hewn from living rock. Immense crystalline pillars, black as obsidian yet pulsing with inner crimson light, rise like dark obelisks around a circular dais. Each glows faintly, as if responding to a breathless presence. Upon this dais, A shallow basin holds ichor-tinted water, its surface rippling in time with the murmured invocation that fills the chamber. The choir stands arrayed in concentric rings. Cloaked figures sway in unison, their arms raised in slow, mirrored cadence. Their voices meld into a single, resonant drone that seems to tug at the very fabric of the Force. Each syllable, drawn from syllabaries older than even Exegol's catacombs, carries the name REVAN as a mantra, a plea, and a command. The sound spirals upward, fracturing in the crystalline walls, then coalescing into an almost tangible pulse that vibrates through bone. Candles flicker along the chamber's perimeter, though no flame truly burns. They feed instead on the chanting itself, responding with brief blue sparks every time the name is uttered. As the Acolyte's chant mounts, the basin's water begins to glow, faintly at first, then in a deepening wash of scarlet light. Wisps of vapor rise, coalescing above the liquid into shapes both formless and familiar. A hooded silhouette, mask half lit by the red glow. Tendrils of mist snake outward, touching each crystal facet and causing it to flare for an instant, a heartbeat of light before fading back into darkness. A voice, neither wholly male nor female, emerges from the haze. REVAN'S voice, reborn through the choir's collective will. It speaks not in sentences, but in declarations. Of debt owed and destinies unmet. Of betrayed creeds and the hunger for balance through dominion. Each word reverberates, igniting runes carved into the chamber's floor. Sigils that had slept for millennia now flare to life, their lines tracing a concentric geometry of power. At the apex of the ritual, a single acolyte, face hidden beneath a hood of deeper crimson, steps forward. He lifts a chalice filled with the basin's crimson ichor and pours its contents into a crystalline phylactery, an egg-shaped vessel inscribed with Sith runes and laced with veins of kyber shard. The crystals around him pulse in response, and the phylactery warms in his hands, veins of red light traversing its surface like living lightning. With a final thunderous note from the choir, he seals the vessel's lid. A shockwave of sound tears outward, shattering the silence that once ruled this chamber and echoing like waves colliding with steel. Then, silence. The choir's song dies in sudden unison, leaving only the echo of what has been summoned. In that hush, a spark of motion. The phylactery's facets shimmer, and the air ripples as though reality itself hesitates. Then, a faint glimmer, eyes behind a familiar mask opening for the first time in centuries. This chamber, hidden from Imperial archives and Jedi holocrons alike, becomes the crucible for REVAN'S rebirth. No grand warships appear in the sky, no fleets marshal for battle. Yet the power contained here is more profound. The return of a legend through whispered faith and ritual. The Revan who emerges may bear the same mask, but his purpose is shaped by the will of those who summoned him. Will he seek vengeance, redemption, or a new balance born of this dark liturgy? As the figure steps forward, the crystalline spires clap with resonant tones, and the choir's leader offers a final benediction in a forgotten tongue. Though the ritual fades from sight, its echoes will thunder through every Sith temple and fuel every whisper of rebellion. In that moment, Revan transcends history and becomes myth reborn, an avatar sculpted by the haunting chant of the Sith eternal. In the lingering red glow, we feel the pulse of possibility, the past converging with the future in a ritual older than time. A muted glow suffuses the archive chamber as we uncover a revelation hidden in plain sight, an expanded entry in the Rise of Skywalker visual dictionary that brings REVAN'S legend into the physical realm of galactic scholars and fans alike. In a secluded vault beneath the Disney publishing archives, a single tome lies open upon a lectern of polished durasteel. Its pages, thicker than parchment and edged in Sith crimson, bear new illustrations, rendered in fine ink washes that pulse with latent power. At the center, a 2-page spread reveals Revan in full regalia. Ebony robes trimmed with copper filaments, dual lightsabers ignited, one blade cobalt blue, the other blood red, crossed at his back like the wings of a dark angel. The mask he wears is shown from 3 angles, its contours sculpted to suggest both menace and magnetism, each gaze slot etched with ancient runes. Adjacent to these images, the sidebar text unfolds like a whispered lecture. It begins with Revan's origins on the Outer Rim. Once Jedi Knight, then Dark Lord, then Redeemer of his own destiny. Revan's dual sabers, it reads, symbolize his mastery of balance, each blade a facet of his own fractured soul. The narrative recounts his campaigns on Malachor 5, where he wielded both Savior's compassion and Tyrant's cruelty, shaping battlefields and myth in equal measure. It speaks of his duel with Bastila Shan, where hope clashed against despair, and of his final sacrifice within the Star Forge's hollow halls. But the most striking addition is a fold-out inset, an annotated diagram showing how Revan's decisions echoed into future generations. One note points to concept art of Luke Skywalker examining Revan's mask in a Jedi archive, the holoprojector beside him displaying the same twin saber motif. Another annotation references a hidden phrase in the Sith code, translated here as, "He who embraces both light and dark transcends them," implying that Revan's legacy secretly informed Palpatine's own philosophy of power. Surrounding the sidebar, small vignette sketches depict key moments. Revan teaching Jedi acolytes on Dantooine under twin moons. Revan rallying war-weary soldiers in the trenches of Onderon. Revan meditating before a shattered holocron. Each vignette is captioned with quotes from unpublished journals, lines like, "Fear strengthens resolve," and "Mercy births hope," lending texture to the portrait of a man who straddled worlds. As readers trace their fingers over the holoplates, a subtle hum resonates through the reading room's holoprojectors. The lights dim, and constellations glimmer across the pages, animating the art. Revan's mask seems to turn its gaze. Twin blades catch light as if in motion, and the rune-etched walls of the Sith temple shimmer into view. This immersive effect ties the dictionary entry into the visual language of the sequel era, suggesting that Revan's story is not confined to dusty holocrons, but lives on in the very technology of the galaxy. Fan reactions ripple across HoloNet forums and datapad feeds. Archivists debate whether this entry retroactively makes Revan canon, while concept artists share breakdowns of the designs, explaining how the dual-blade animation rigs were inspired by early Knights of the Old Republic cutscenes. Collectors clamor for an art book release, and Jedi Templar role-players craft missions centered on retrieving lost pages of the dictionary itself. Under our guiding pillars, this visual dictionary revelation stands as a powerful bridge between eras. Its feasibility is anchored in existing publishing workflows. Its canonical evidence is stamped in official art and text. Its narrative fit elegantly threads Old Republic legend into modern sequels. Fan momentum surges with every shared image, and its future impact promises to inspire new stories, both official and fan-crafted. In the quiet aisles of the archives, the dictionary's augmented pages lie waiting for curious eyes, an invitation to rediscover Revan not as myth alone, but as living history, carved in ink light, and law. A hush deeper than the void settles as our journey reaches its apex, where echoes of the past forge a new dawn under distant stars. In the silent aftermath of galactic upheaval, the saga of Revan finds rebirth, not through masks or spectral visions, but in the hearts of those who bear his name. Centuries after Revan's last stand, the galaxy's scars have mostly healed. Yet in the outer rim's darker reaches, rumors endure of a clandestine unit, soldiers cloned from the genetic templates of Revan's personal guard. Branded the Revan Legion, they inherited not only their progenitor's name, but a latent spark within their blood, an inexplicable resonance with the Force. As the New Republic rekindled hope, the Legion faded into classified dossiers until a transmission from Exegol shattered silence. On the storm-lashed surface of that hidden world, a small archaeological team discovered a sealed chamber buried beneath the Emperor's fortress. Its entrance bore the carved sigil of Revan. Twin sabers crossed over a cosmic void. Among relics of Sith worship, they found holocrons, small crystalline cubes inscribed with Revan's voice and visions. When the holocron's facets ignited, they revealed tactics, teachings, and confessions long thought obliterated. Yet the most startling truth lay in its final message, a summons to those who shared his blood. The Republic's command dispatched the Revan Legion to Exegol under cloak of night. Clad in armor reflecting both imperial polish and archaic Sith runes, 6 troopers touched down on ash-choked plains. Their boots sank into obsidian dust as they approached the hidden vault, sabers of silvery light strapped to their hips, an homage to both Jedi and Dark Lord. Each step awakened dormant vibrations in their DNA, stirring memories they could not yet name. Within the chamber, watertight doors groaned open. Holocrons floated above etched pedestals, each humming with a voice that transcended time. The troopers activated the first cube. Revan's image flickered into being, hooded, mask lifted, eyes alight with purpose. His hologram spoke of unity through conflict, of balance forged in crucibles of war, and of responsibilities carried by those willing to stand between light and the abyss. As his final words faded, the troopers felt an electric conviction. They were chosen to carry Revan's mission forward. Beyond doctrine, the holocrons revealed a galactic map marked with coordinates, sites where Revan had walked, taught, or fought. The troopers embarked on a pilgrimage across old battlefields, the catacombs of Dantooine, the scorched halls of Malachor, and the hidden laboratories of Coruscant. At each waypoint, they uncovered fragments of lore, battle medallions, personal insignia, and faded messages inscribed in the ancient Sith tongue. The armor's runes glowed brighter with each artifact returned to Exegol, as if the planet itself nourished their quest. Their journey intertwined with the New Republic's struggles. On Coruscant, Senator Organa received holocron data indicating a conspiracy to resurrect dormant Sith cults. On Chandrila, the Legion's discoveries fueled debates over whether to publish Revan's teachings or bury them in secrecy. And among Jedi enclaves, Masters debated the wisdom of cloning Force-sensitive troopers, wondering if echoes of past failures would repeat, or if this new beginning could truly honor Revan's legacy. As the Legion's pilgrimage culminated on Exegol, they assembled around a vast monolith inscribed with Revan's final testament. Under starlight that filtered through the planet's toxic storms, they activated the monolith's holoprojector. Revan emerged once more, no longer a recreant Dark Lord nor repentant savior, but a guide stitched into the fabric of galactic destiny. His voice urged them to transcend labels. Your namesake's path was neither light nor dark alone, but the forging of a future where choice endures. Carry this flame beyond fear. In that moment, armor runes pulsed into brilliance, casting the squad's silhouettes against jagged spires, their helmets raised, faces illuminated by resurrected hope. They pledged to rebuild not an empire or an order, but a galaxy capable of embracing complexity, a realm where REVAN'S true legacy, balance through understanding, could flourish. Silence reclaimed Exegol as the monolith's glow dimmed. Yet the Legion's oath echoed across star systems, a promise that myths may sleep but never die, and that heroes can rise where legends once fell. And so, as the final echoes of REVAN'S saga drift into the starlit void, we find ourselves suspended between shadow and dawn. 10 whispers of destiny, each a thread in a tapestry of myth and memory, have guided us through the unknown regions and back again. Now you carry these tales with you, seeds of possibility that stir the Force's deeper currents. Rest, traveler of legends, and let your dreams be woven by the promise of REVAN'S return. For in the hush that follows this marathon of lore, the greatest adventure still awaits, hidden just beyond the horizon of stars.